Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. Of course, we are talking all things BresBet Easter Cup. Of course, we'll also be getting into the Con Kirby Memorial a little bit later on. But I am glad to say we are joined by Carl Perry of BresBet, and for the first time this year, yes, this year. Where are we? The middle of April, nearly. The
Second time,
Exile
second
Dub
time.
the Exile Dub is back from his exile. Tommy Lyons is with us as we discuss all matters BresBet Easter Cup and again the Kirby Memorial. Carl, I'm going to start with you because you were at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. You were lucky enough to present the trophy to Hopes Teddy, a tremendous winner of the Easter Cup. But thankfully, for once, you got the weather, Carl. You hadn't been lucky in previous years. It was a glorious evening in Dublin.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and the weather made the difference. It was a nice sunny day. The track was in great condition and some flying runs as well. But yeah, we had a fantastic evening Saturday.
Of course, this is your first BresBet Easter Cup at the new Shelbourne Park. The place is looking resplendent, packed on Saturday night. Great atmosphere.
It was great. Shelbourne Park's always have a great atmosphere, but the big final nights are even better. And yeah, the new Shelbourne Park's fantastic.
Yeah. Tommy Lyons, you were looking from afar, I'm sure. Hopes Teddy, the closer it came to the race, sort of this time last week, I was going, I don't know what I'll even tip. And then, so the closer you get to the race, you realize, these classic finals, if you're out in front, that's the place to be. And Hopes Teddy was the likely leader. And as a result, he did come in for strong support, sort of in the latter stages, and went off a pretty warm favourite.
Yeah, I think you had to either go top or bottom. I made a mistake going bottom. I know tires and mass I hadn't been braking as well as it can. And I was kind of taking the chance halfway blue might come in a bit at the bend, not very early, but at the bend, and that if Randolph Scott has shown so much early pace in the previous week off a not a flying break, and I just thought there might be some kind of bit of crowding along the inside. But fairness to Hope's Teddy, that sprinting class kind of came through, didn't it?
Did you?
And a great bit of determination to get around the front because there wasn't much in it going into the bend. Randolph Scott is a smashing dog too. He's developing now, isn't he? In the last couple of months, he started to really develop Randolph Scott's, even though he has a bit of experience. But I liked the performance of the winner. I just did because I thought it looked desperately tricky. And I suppose I think you probably had to pick one of the flanks, and the market got it very, very right. But you had on their side, those who supported him had a dog who had that determination and to match that bit of early pace that he showed. So yeah, it was a nice performance. Now 29:61 isn't a fast time by any means for an Easter Cup final, but I don't think anybody gives a damn about that, really, do they?
No.
Hope City did what he needed to do.
And as he sort of did move off the fence a little bit, and there was a little bit
Mm.
of bumping and boring on the inside. If he'd missed a kick, even by a half a length, all of a sudden Randolph Scott's and Barefoot and Song would have been in on top of him, and that potential traffic on the inside may well have happened. The ball Falcon was immediately squeezed. He was sort of left out the back into the opening corner. But the problem was Tarzan Massey walked out.
Yeah.
You say he hadn't been breaking as well, but this was his slowest start by some margin.
Yeah, this it was a pity it was because his race was over. Like you've said it all along. If he's not going to lead, he's probably going to struggle to win at this level. You don't really get a second chance at this level if you don't do things right. And he missed it completely and was just out of the race after the first few yards in terms of winning the race. Anyway, he ran fine. He was only beaten about 6 lengths. Um, yeah, look when I was looking at the race, I found it difficult. I don't know what it was like. I don't. Carol will tell us in a minute, but I'd say Hope Teddy was reasonably popular from the start. Maybe not one of the most popular in the betting start, but I say he was reasonably popular because he had been shown that early pace. But I found it a difficult final to kind of get a gauge on. And I think, like you said, Ian, that was the margin. It was like a neck or half length is all it was. If he missed it slightly, there's trouble inside. And maybe if Tarzan Massa embraced, it's a different story. But like getting things right in the final, I suppose it's the dog that had been doing it right through the competition who got his just reward at the end. I think that's the way it worked out, to be honest.
Yeah, Carl, we're going to ask you. Barry Cole was telling me before racing on Saturday night you'd been talking to him that Randolph Scott's had actually been backed into favouritism. I told
Yeah.
Barry that ain't going to last. I said Hope Steady is going to go off favourite. Simple as that. It was one of my few predictions that was 100% right. You just know in Shelbourne Park, if you're in trap one of your early speed in a big final like that, that you're going to go off favourite. And Hope Steady did go off favourite. Was there much action in the week ahead of it?
To be fair, last Monday when we priced it up, we laid out 3-1 core favourites. There weren't much between them. We laid up Steady was the first dog we'd laid. We'd already laid the Ball Falcon, anti post. But then Saturday come and the money were Randall Scott, and
he became the second biggest liability. And but no, we did see money late on insure for Upsteady. But I think as the night went on, I mean, Upsteady was my selection, but I think the more the night went on, the more confident I got, especially
Mm.
with the track running a bit quicker. I thought that was just all going to play to his advantage. So yeah, it they got the right favourite in the end, but. It's amazing that you could have had 3-1 and 7-2, I think, in places at times during the week.
It had that sort of look about it. But you do find that people settle with an opinion after a few days. They don't want to make their mind up straight away. And like increasingly, I find that myself. Maybe it's just old age that you're not as decisive in the early part of the week, and you sort of settle on an opinion before then really sort of something kicking in. But you might arrive to the track and all of a sudden you just get this notion. No, I'm wrong. This will happen. And that's so often happens. But anyone that did decide in the closing stages that Hope Steady was the one to beat, well, they were soon sort of justified in their opinion. He did break well. So too did Randolph Scott's and Barefoot and Song in the middle of the track. And you know, if it wasn't for Hope's Teddy's superior early speed, it may well have been quite a battle into the bend. As it was, Hope's Teddy just edged off the opening corner. And that was probably the key to success because Barefoot and Song had to sort of dab on the brakes and cut inwards to find a bit of space, while Randolph Scott's was probably just in the wrong spot. If he'd been a half length further back, he probably would have turned right on the heels of Hope's Teddy into the back straight. But as it was, he was just that fraction too close and he was forced to check off. Before you knew it, Hope's Teddy was 3 or 4 clear into the back straight. The Bull Falcon was struggling for room. Sadly, Hawkfield Blue had already picked up his injury at that point. So it was very much looking like Hope's Teddy off the second bend. And so it proved. He's, for a dog that was so good over the sprint trip, Carl, and ran well over 525 yards, it's not always guaranteed that they'll get the 550 yards. Obviously, quicker track is definitely helping him, but I wouldn't say he's not a non-stayer by any stretch of imagination. This is the dog that gets the 550 yards.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, the early rounds saw that. In the first 2 rounds, he stamped that stamina authority. That it was no issue. If anybody did have any doubts, it was soon put to bed in the first couple of rounds. It was only probably in the semi-final that the Bull Falcon was so close to him that he got picked up. But no, I think his stamina's proven from the early rounds and again on Saturday.
Yeah, I went 1, 2, 3 on top of the card. The Bull Falcon was obviously in trap two. He was trying to find his way back into contention off the second bend and just clipped the heels of a dog in front and took a tumble. Now, gladly, he did gallop on to the escape. I'm sure he's feeling it this morning. It was an eventful contest, Carl. It wasn't, there are days where you go, geez, I just wish that hadn't happened. And like for Ginger McGee and Jamie McGee to have two dogs in the final and one getting hurt on the opening bend and the other taking a tumble off the second bend, it was a night they'd probably sooner forget.
Yeah, 100%. And it didn't spoil the final, but it just puts that blemish on the final as you're watching and for the crowd people there. And for us, I was on the infield watching it and it was devastating for Ginger and his team, to be having
Mm.
to catch two dogs and take them away, not completing. But we all know that happens in racing. The main thing is that, both dogs were going home with a trainer. That's the most
Absolutely.
important
No.
thing. That's
Absolutely.
take
As
out
I
of it.
said, at least the Bull Falcon did gallop into the escape. He looked fine himself. I'd say he feeling a little bit rough,
Yeah.
feeling a bit rough this morning. But he did gallop on strongly, and it just wouldn't be Irish Greyhound racing at present, Tommy, in a major competition in Shelbourne Park if the Bull Falcon wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah, he's a terrific dog. He really is. Actually, it was I tell you to tell you how confused I was about the whole thing. I had two bets in the final, small bets now. I backed had something on Tarzan Master just because of the price, and I backed Barefoot on Song without the favourite, which like both bets can't win, which is a horrible way to bet. Um, but anyway, which I'm just greedy. I don't like betting that way at all. But like in fairness, now I know Barefoot Song got cut off a couple of times and ran on again. But in fairness to Randall Scott, you have to like the performance to hold on to second place. You'd have to like the determination. I really, I think he's a dog that's developing nicely. Hope's Teddy in terms of stamina. Look, he's not a strong stayer at 550 at the moment. And had there been another round of competition, you'd really think he'd struggle. I would think he would struggle personally but I think on a faster track on a summer surface, he get it better again. Do you know what I mean? And that's where he can do proper clocks on it. He can. So this at this stage of the season, if you've got any stamina doubts, this is kind of the time they're going to get exposed because the track isn't lightning fast. It's just going to test you. It's going to take a bit out of you week on week. And he got home and maybe like he was a long way clear and won by 3 lengths. Maybe he could have won by more. It makes no difference to connections whatsoever. But I just think he's a dog that will actually improve quite a bit when we see him over the trip in the summer.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see if he does end up in Toaster. I suspect that Pat Buckley is more in favor of not going to Toaster this year. I'd say probably the presence of a certain Bacchus diamond might also sway that decision somewhat. But if Hopes Teddy does stay in Ireland, Tommy, like that race of champions in Tralee, just like that is just made for him.
Yeah, look, it is, but you know what? It's we're at the stage of the season, we haven't seen enough of the dogs yet.
Mm,
We haven't. This is always the time of the season where you see a few coming out and they win something like this, and then you're kind of going like this dog could win the laurels, or this dog could win. He's got lightning early pace. He could go up and compete in Dundalk, or he could go to the race of champions and win that. And then you come out and something that doesn't quite get 550 has absolutely electric early pace, and you're going to go, how's he going to beat him? Like this is going to be some run to the bend. Or we start talking about Hope's Teddy, they spend time trying to make him a 550 dog, and he's lost that little bit of sharpness for a sprint or for 525. Things will change so quickly over the course of the next couple of months. We start to see the dogs emerge. So look at if I owned Hope's Teddy now, I'd be absolutely thrilled having won an Easter Cup, and I think whatever I get after this will be a bonus. But I genuinely do think he's going to continue to improve.
yeah, he's a proper greyhound, and this is
Mm.
his sixth start of the year. He's won five of them.
Mm.
You can't ask for any more, Carl. He just seems
Mm.
to have everything you need. He is a younger full brother to Ballinabola Ed, and in many ways, he's a more complete greyhound than Ballinabola Ed. That's not to say he's a more talented greyhound because we know the White Flash was something special, but this fellow. He's more consistent at boxes. He probably has more early speed than Ballinabola Ed. And by God, when he's on the bunny, he hasn't been passed too often.
Well, I think when they called him Ballinaball Ted, they had an idea that he might be sharp enough. All right, he might be smart enough. So he's there aren't too many Ballinaball Eds around, let's just say. But he's won an Easter Cup.
Yeah. Carl, you wouldn't mind one like him.
No, definitely not now. And we're still hoping that Connections will consider bringing him to Sheffield later on the year for a bonus. That's an offer now for him. Yeah, he'd fly around Sheffield. I know that.
I will say one thing, given the fact that it's won by Pat Buckley, that does make it more likely. Pat hasn't been afraid to go over. Like he won the Silver Salver with the
Yeah, he
sprint
did.
over
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
UK, and like he's gone over for little competitions where you go, "What's bringing you over there?" Ah, sure, why not?
yeah,
And like with that little carrot sort of dangling there, Carl, as you've thrown it out there, you know what I mean? I'm sure Pat is going. Do you know what? Wouldn't
yeah.
mind a little journey across the water. It'd be nice.
Not much happening in October. We'll have a trip over. Yeah, put a few more in Van as well.
I tell you what, spoken like a true sponsor, Tommy, wasn't it?
And dead right, and dead right. If you're putting the money up, you want to get the best dogs over. You want to get a chance. You want a bit of publicity, and you want
Yeah,
the likes of a Hope's Teddy involved.
Oh,
yeah,
I'd love
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Randolph Scott's is a dog we could be referencing the BresBet Easter Cup with for a few months to come. Tommy, you've already referenced them. Carl, hard not to be impressed by this fellow through the competition. Obviously, you look at him and, from the early stages, Brett Lee out of OYU penalty, you're going, God, this is going to be some star. And there was glimpses early in his career. Now, I did get word from, I think it was one of the owners that I think he had problems with his constitution early on. I think he wasn't handling his racing very well. And he's obviously developed and strengthened up over the winter because this is a very different greyhound. Like this is a dog that seems to have all the quality needed as well. If you take Hope's Teddy out of the race, this fellow's going around in front on his own, and he probably wins in 29, 30 or 40, wins an Easter Cup, and all of a sudden we're now talking about, the likes of given the fact that he's a Peter Cronin trained dog, you're comparing him to the likes of Mr. Chelm, the artist formerly known as Kildare, or Trinity Junior, that type of greyhound. This is one of those dogs where they can rock up anywhere with them. They could go to England, they go to a Champion Stakes, go to a Derby. This is a proper greyhound that they'll have a bit of sport with.
Definitely, yeah. I think they've got plenty of options in where to go now from here. And it was just fine margins, he broke very well and he went into that bend. It was just that fine margin where he got crowded out of it and, took second. But no, I think he's the dog. He's improved all the way through the competition and he's the one what will go forward again.
Yeah,
I also got to meet Connections on Saturday night and a great bunch of people. There was but they were pleased to finish second. They wanted to win, but great Connections, and I think they'll have a lot of fun. The syndicate who own
yeah.
him.
You can almost tell what a syndicate's going to be like by the name of the syndicate, like the Big Bus Syndicate. There's a name
Yeah.
there somewhere along the line. Tommy, he's also a white and black, so he's quite a striking greyhound when he gets racing. Randolph Scott's, yeah, I wouldn't mind being sort of on his side going forward. I think he's a really nice dog.
I'm the same. I think Peter Crum does really well with this type of dog. The ones that need a bit of patience.
Hmm.
Because he obviously started off in the Dennis Linehan last year, made a big impression in the first round, of beating in the second. He was off a bit. He had a run 2 weeks later. He was off then for a while, and then he had a kind of series of runs towards the end of last season. But what he wasn't shown then was consistency at the break. He
Hmm.
wasn't showing that. And even though his splits in this competition, 346, 44, 45, 41, they're reasonably consistent, I think he can do a bit better than that too. And I think that'll probably come with the track speeding up as well as everything else. I think he's developing. He's the type of dog now. If he had a fortnight off, you could see him post a huge run in Shelbourne over that same course and distance. Like I really do. I think he's a real nice dog. He's beginning to show. Well, he's not beginning to show. He's second in the Easter Cup. He has shown that sort of the realization of what that potential from the first round of the Dennis Linehan in Cork last year. So yeah, he's a real nice dog. Real nice dog for the future. And he's the type of dog. He's the type of dog. Peter Cron's never been afraid to travel either, and to do what he
No.
needs to do to find the right competition. And I mean that means any track, anywhere, to find the right competition to suit the dog. There's not like there are trainers who'll say, "I only want to go to Shelbourne," or "I only want to go here," or "I'm not traveling up the road," or whatever. "I'm not traveling there." Peter will find the right place for the dog, and he does well because of that. I think that's a huge help to him in the success he has. So Randolph Scott will give him plenty of fun.
Yeah, no question about it. The 29-29 run the previous week was serious. This was a
Yeah.
dog that had to force his way through on the corner to win in 29-29. So that could have been even better for quicker. And this wasn't when the track was running as fast as it was this week. Traditionally, you look back at the Easter Cups in recent years, they don't do lightning clocks. So 29-29 is it's not just a good run, it's a hell of a good run.
Yeah.
A good fast dog. Barefoot and Song ran a big race back in third for Brian and Kathleen Murphy. They were over from the Cayman Islands. It was great to see them catch up with them on Saturday night. And this lady has a litter of pups, 6 months on the ground. She's as I think the way Carl or the way Barry Call referenced it on Saturday night is she's doing it for the mothers. But she was representing Barefoot and Song. So listen, anytime they've had a litter of pups, anything they achieve afterwards when they come back in the track is a bonus. And by God, it's quite a bonus to be third in an Easter Cup.
Unbelievable achievement, and yeah, I mean it's something that I never did race the bitch after the pups, but fair play to them for doing so, and to getting it back to that level, and that is some achievement to reach it to reach your Easter Cup final, finishing third. At one point, I thought she may have just got up for second on the running. I thought she might have picked that, but that's credit to the Randolph dog. He stuck on well.
Yeah. A tremendous Easter Cup, Tommy. We'll look back on it fondly. Again, a good winner, Hopes Teddy, and a third winner in the competition for Pat Buckley, who has quite a body of work behind him when you look at it.
Oh, he does, yeah. I think the competition was. I thought it was difficult. I thought it was difficult for punters. I thought it was a difficult competition in terms of that way, trying to solve it. Didn't mean it wasn't a good final. It was, and Hope said he's a very worthy winner. I thought he needed to do everything right, and even though he kind of moved off a little bit the other night, he needed to show that he had that determination. Sometimes when you have a specialist early pacer, what we think is a specialist early pacer, and they get a little bit of a bump early, it makes some difference. He showed great determination. He was, I'd say from a punting point of view, it's very much early season form and very difficult to figure out where dogs are and where they aren't. And I still think, as I said already, for him, I think this is only the start of his progress.
Yeah. Looking back to the very start of the competition, Carl, it's sort of the market on the at the outset was difficult. From someone looking in thinking, I'll back something anti-post here. When you see three dogs at the top of the market, Callaway Kinnegair, the Laddie Da, and Boyle Sports Bob, none of which you would class as real early speedsters, real powerhouses, no question about it. It was no wonder why people were looking down the list for the likes of the Hopes Teddy and Cushy the Best. I sort of recommended a couple of people, capable of scalding to a corner, and it was one of the early pacers that came to the fore. It is worth bearing in mind when you come to these types of competitions that if there's one of those strong running types of the shortish price, look past them. Go for the early speed. Early speed, when it comes down to it, does win these races. How was the anti-post book, and how was the book in general?
Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be a winner in the book, and we'd had a, we had a few different favourites along the way. I mean, I think we had Lardy Darwin, Boyle Sports Bob was joint favourites, anti-post, and Upsteady was in here about 16s or 20 to 1, I think he were the first
Yeah.
round. But after the first round, he did put a stamp on it with his first round performance, and I think he went in second favourite after the first round, and then after the second round, he was favourite, clear favourite for since then. But no, I mean, it was overall a good book. We laid one or two early doors that didn't make it past the second round, and like I said, the final was just a winning result in the end.
Yeah. Fantastic results, and well done to Carl for their and BresBet for their wonderful sponsorship. Obviously a cracking card at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, Carl. Some fine displays through the night. Just want to mention a couple of them. Obviously, we mentioned Callaway Kinnegare earlier on. He had to work harder than many would have expected in the 600. It ended up being a cracking contest. I'm going to say slightly disappointed by Callaway Kinnegare, but he remains a hugely fast greyhound. And I think if you look back at him last year, I think he's probably a dog that does need racing. I think he'll improve for all these races he's had in recent times. And I wouldn't be just quite dismissing him now as a classic contender going forward. He may well end up in the Shelbourne 600. But a big run in second by Crafty Bondi. She's a fast lady. She always has been.
Yeah, I mean, at one point I didn't know. I think she were going to beat him.
Yeah,
But yeah, he is a fast dog, and he's a dog that he's got to find that right trip. I mean, the 550 looks made for him, but he's run well on Saturday, and it's just whether as he gets older, whether he wants that bit further. It's going to be it'd be interesting. How he goes this year. He's still very fast, and he's still when everything goes right for him. The gap's open and he gets the run of the race. He's an aeroplane of a dog.
yeah. Tommy, I dare say you have your thoughts.
I'm like you. I'm a bit disappointed that he didn't go on to win further because when he showed that pace down to halfway to take over, I thought he'll win two or three because this is the old thing I say where people say, oh, you're crabbing a dog like Callaway Kinnegare, but we just hold him to a higher standard because he has shown that ability. That's why it's not because we're not comparing him with AO dogs. We're talking or even AAO dogs. We're comparing him with classic dogs or
Yeah.
classic ability. So like I was a little bit disappointed he didn't go on to
He's
win
in the
two or three
top sort
lengths.
of he's in the top 5, 10 top drawer greyhounds in the country. You know what I mean?
He's in the top five, I'd say
Yeah.
definitely in
Yeah, well,
ability wise. I'd
He's
say
Derby third, I suppose. That says it all. He's won the juvenile Derby in the style of
and
a
and
Anthony
and
Johnson.
argue all day that he wasn't 100% right through the derby even. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And despite the fact that he finished third, I'd argue all day that he wasn't right at his very best throughout that competition. So we're holding him up to scrutiny at a ridiculously high level. So hence the reason I'm disappointed because when I look at the field, I go Crafty Bondi, Sing Along Molly, Timmy's books. I actually like the run of Dashing Toro. There's a dog with like immense ability,
yeah,
but things have never gone right. Whatever's happened in his career early on or whatever, he's just I'd say if you were training him, you'd just be so frustrated because you look at him and go, God, you are some smashing dog. God, you've got some ridiculous ability. But geez, trying to get it out of you, like, and that's only his first run back. And he finished fifth, right? He'd beaten a length and a half in total. You know,
one for
so
the grader, one
I
for the
would
grader. Isn't that right, Carl?
Yeah.
he got slightly outpaced into the first bend and kind of got pushed wide. It wasn't a bad bump like that, but it was kind of he exaggerated it himself almost Dashing Toro. And look, that's your kind of concern with him, but he's got a great ability. But Callaway Kinnegare, look, I am disappointed. I was disappointed with the performance the other night. There's no two ways about it. But he's not exactly. I'm not going to be like jumping up and down to lay him next week or anything like
No, certainly not. There was two massive runs over the 525. Obviously the bitch race was won by Glengar Martha Carroll. She's just been a star. Not an awful lot needs to be said about her. She's away and gone 27.81. Track was rated fast on the night. And Glory Lord, who's a nice dog for Barry Clancy. You wouldn't mind either of them, Carol?
No, definitely not. She's been there, tried and tested, like you're saying, but when she cracks out like that, there's a run coming. But yeah, there were two great runs, and yeah, the track was quick, but two special performances.
I'm not going to even go to Tommy because he's going to tell me about the 28 seconds is going to be like just that's going to be broken willy-nilly every week. That's his line all the time. Carl, before we let you go, we were going to go and discuss a bit more, but you had a busy weekend, of course. Toaster saw a start of a lot of the Derby action. The maiden Derby got underway, some great trial stakes. Paul Hennessy with a four-timer. I'm sure you were keeping an eye on that, but your main focus was on Sheffield because your gym crack got underway and. by all accounts, I wouldn't mind taking a bit of even money that Patrick Ansons might win it.
Yeah, that would be some bet. Yeah, he had there was a free eats and Patrick won, all free eats, three very good winners, and I think he qualified four dogs with a runner-up as well. So yeah, Patrick had a strong game going into. There were two semi-finals this week with first three qualifying. If the draw's kind to him this morning, he should have a really strong hand in that final, and there's no way he'd be betting even money Patrick to win it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
it was some quality dog.
It was the Droopy's trade dog that went fastest. He, of course, started off in Tralee. He showed real promise in Tralee. He went fastest of his three heat winners, but the other two heat winners, the two Romeo dogs, this Romeo operation just seems to be no cease to what they can achieve.
No, a fantastic operation, and Dave Fenges is becoming legendary for producing these dogs year in year out and these litters, and he has great dogs in Ireland and great dogs in England. He's a big breeder. He's got the quality. They keep churning him out, and it's a well-oiled machine. And yeah, his them pups will be open to any amount of improvement. I think they come into the competition after only having two or three runs, so they're in the right hands to improve. And yeah, I think once again this year the Jim Craig small entry for what we would have liked, but we'll definitely throw some quality dogs out of it that will go well in the UK further this year. There will definitely Cat 1 winners come out of this competition.
Yeah, two of them, the two Dave Firminger trained winners or owned winners were both by Romeo Magico, who's made a brightish start, shall we say, to his stud career. An insanely talented greyhound, and he's starting to throw some nice pups. So we look forward to seeing them. Best of luck with the Jim Crack, Carl. We hope to see you back in this side of the water in the near future. I might bump into you never know, in Toaster a bit later in the year. But thanks, Carl, and thanks again for your wonderful sponsorship of the BresBet Easter Cup. And I think it's safe to say you had a tremendous winner in Hopes Teddy.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. 4 great years so far. I mean, we know we're 4 great winners, and this year no different. And thanks to you guys for accommodating us and helping us along the way.
Yeah. Well, as we say goodbye to Carl, let's take a look back on the success of Hopes Teddy at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night in the BresBet Easter Cup.
And there is the bell. The runners for this BresBet Easter Cup decider: 1 Hopes Teddy, 2 De Bold Falcon, 3 Randolph Scots, 4 Barefoot and Song, 5 Hawkfield Blue, and 6 is Tarzan Maasai. Hair up behind Traps. And racing, good start by 3 Randolph Scots. Hopes Teddy though gets racing, leads up the inside from 3 Randolph Scots. Then comes 4 Barefoot and Song, who edges to the fence. 2 De Bold Falcon looking for room, but up front he's on by 4 lengths now to win second spot. Trap 3 Randolph Scots and 4 on their inside. That's Barefoot and Song, but up front and Hopes Teddy is in pole position. 3 Randolph Scots trying to bridge the gap. Barefoot and Song in third, but Hopes Teddy will give Pat Buckley another Champion Stakes success. Well done to Pat and to Kieran O'Sullivan. Second was 3 Randolph Socks and 4 Barefoot and Song third. The winning time 29:61.
Are you thinking of fundraising? We have the vision to make your event a success. See fundraising at its best. Visit www.gogreyhoundracing.ie.
Yes, our thanks once again to Carl Perry and to BresBet for their continued and generous sponsorship of the Easter Cup. A great winner in the form of Hopes Teddy. But now we switch our attention to matters at Limerick, because the Con and Annie Kirby Memorial continued at Limerick on Saturday night. We had 4 wonderful quarterfinals. And Tommy, this is the first time I've had a chance to chat to you to the Kirby Memorial. Once again, I said it last week, it really did look like a novice stake. You could just see that there were so many dogs that were going to go improve and continue to improve, and dogs that have gone out that you go, can't wait to see them later in the year. And that's the way it's always been. When you look back at some of the dogs that went out in the early rounds of the Kirby, 5 Derby winners have emerged from the Kirby, and none of them went on to win the Kirby. So that sort of says it all. 4 wonderful heat winners. What's your general sort of thought process on this year's Kirby?
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad I wasn't on the last couple of weeks, because I couldn't make head or tail this Kirby. What I think, right, and I might be wrong on this, but I think there seems to be an abundance of stamina among this bunch.
Yeah, they're a very strong bunch. Very strong.
It's like that's the what I picked up from it. And at the moment, when they're young and stamina is their forte, oftentimes you get a bit of inconsistency in results in that, because they mightn't get a run, or they're not mature enough to kind of sidestep a little bit of trouble or a bump or get over a bump or cover from it as quickly as they will as they mature with racing. And that's so I've kind of found it difficult to looking at it, difficult to kind of pick winners out of it. And even at the moment, looking ahead to say, if you ask me what I thought would win it, I'd be saying, I'm really not sure yet. I know just looking at the prices, what I would pick, but there was one of the heats the other night, Ian, the Fay Point Ranger heat. The Fay Point Ranger missed a kick slightly. He'd be a specialist early pacer, right? And he's going to develop into a dog that can stay 550, no problem. But he's not at the moment, he's one of the early pacers in the race, right? Now he missed it the other night and still got around in front because he was in a heat laden with stamina. But look at the pace of Lemon Joey. Look at the pace of Ballymac Jester. And you see Toolmaker Giuseppe would finishing as well. Toolmaker Giuseppe would finishing like Druby Deploy had been finishing against him last week. I mean, I'm bouncing from one to the other. Go, that's the strongest stayer. Oh no, it's actually that one. Oh no, sorry, it's a different one. I mean, I like you'd have to love Ballymac Jester. I actually think I don't. I think it's 16-1 at the moment. Ballymac Jester is the one that's overpriced.
That's
the one.
He jumps out as the one that's overpriced.
Overpriced at 16s. I tell you why, Ian, because
he knew how strong he was, but he showed more he showed more last week in the sense where he was right there in between the two dogs going to the corner, lost his pitch a little bit, and was still able to get back. And like, what's he beaten? He beaten a half length base.
A neck and a short head. And I think to be honest about it, he can go up close enough. And I think, right, there are middle seeds in the race, and I would argue too that Druby deploys in the middle seed. Or if he's a middle seed, he's a 3 or 4 at best. Out in 5 is too far out.
He's probably a better chance from the inside.
I would too. And so there are middle seeds. I wouldn't like to be drawn inside Druby deploy, but Ballymac Jester would cope with 6 much better than most of them would.
Yeah,
and can go. And I actually think that maybe Ballymac Jester might go up a bit better from 6. Because he went up well the other night from 5. Now, as I said, it wasn't a race full of early pace. The Fay Point Ranger was the early pace angle and the obvious leader. And you think in those circumstances, and this is typical novice race, but in those circumstances, you think, Fay Point Ranger, he's going to get around 2 or 3 clear and going to win as he wants. But the thing is, then you get a stamina laden dog who turns in second place, and you go, oh, maybe I'm in trouble now. Yeah. Like Lemon Joey is a dog that caught my eye early on this. I liked him from the very start, really from the start. But Ballymac Jester and Toolmaker Giuseppe, who's out of the competition, but like lost nothing in defeat again. He's like this. I think it's a really good. I started off thinking, this isn't a great renewal, and that's probably down to my own inability to kind of make to figure it out early. And you do need rounds with young dogs like this, with inexperienced greyhounds. You do need a few rounds to see what they're doing. But the more I look at them, I'm going, whoa, there's some powerhouses in here. Now, if we're thinking about derbies, right, and we always do because we always focus everything, we look at this competition thinking we're going to get derby dogs out of it. And you could say, oh, look at Lemon Joy, he wants 550. Well, he probably does because he has a blend of early pace. Ballymac Jester, the same. Toolmaker Giuseppe, well, does he have the early pace? I don't know. You look at Druby Deploy, does it have the early pace? I'm not really sure. And you kind of go, well, actually, do you know what? If you don't have early pace for here, can you win a derby anymore?
Yeah,
unless you're utterly exceptional.
There is also a case that some of them are so novice and so inexperienced. Yeah. Early speed can still come. Like we've seen dogs in the past where they've come to the track and it's taken them 8-10 runs to really find their feet, especially if they're running in this type of company. Who's to say one dog gets loose some night and all of a sudden he's away and gone. And he and I don't mean in the race itself, but I mean in his career, that he finds his feet and then certainly develops this early speed that you think, God, I never thought he had that. We've seen that countless times over the years, and there was a lot of cases of that. And again, there's so many dogs gone out of this competition that like it'd be no shock to me to see them rock up and win a classic later in the year. There's some really fast greyhounds, but I do tend to agree with you in a sense where this year there does seem to be a particular emphasis on strength in with many of them. There's 2 or 3 I highlighted. Actually, I think Druby's or Ballymac Jester's probably the 3rd or 4th I think mentioned from Liam Dowling's kennel. Like Ballymac Tibet went out. He looked a hugely fast greyhound. The Ballymac Able dog, he looks hugely fast. But again, strength. It's not early speed. But again, Liam sort of he's never like he's obviously he's targeting the event, but he's never had these dogs ready to go in the first round. His dogs seem to learn a lot in it, much like Brendan Matthews. We'll get to him in a few moments. He's got 2 dogs there that are far from the finished article, but yet they're improving at a rapid rate of knots. The supercharged dog in particular, or the bubbly charger dog in particular, has, what's he have, 3 races under his belt, and look how well he ran the other evening. Let's get into the heats, and we'll touch upon most of these dogs. The first heat winner was Fun in the Run. Solo Mio looked like he was going to land the spoils. This is a dog that's been backed up pretty strongly most nights, and in the anti-post. I keep getting a phone call from Damien telling me that Solo Mio, he's liabilities. He had every chance the other evening, but again, it was only his 5th start. So, who's to say that he's not strengthening up all the time? What he did show was a lovely turn of early to go to the front, 14-15, 15-98. But Fun in the Run, who is a little bit more experienced than many of his rivals, got there in the closing hours to win. Isn't it great to see the Malone family having a dog like Fun in the Run? Again, a dog that's carrying a wide seed. And you know what? I don't think I'd have any problem with him in any other trap, including 6. I have no problem with him racing as a wide seed. I just think he's a dog that'll go up straight from wherever he is, and he'll find his racing line wherever he needs to go.
You know what? Maybe you talked about his bit of maturity, his bit of experience. He was able to track inside at the third bend. A genuine wide seed has to find a way around the outside and doesn't get to Solomir. Just doesn't get there. Gets beaten because it has to go around. But the fact that he tracked outside and inside, I think is how I commented to in my report this morning. Tracked outside and in. And it's actually, sometimes you think that's a negative in a dog, but there was so much space between him and the dogs behind that it wasn't like he was trying to run into where he shouldn't go. He said, "I'm chasing the lure, and the quickest way for me to find it is to go inside Fun or Solomia, who's just slightly off the bend." So I don't have a negative about that. There would be times that would cause me concern. And you say trying to win a derby or whatever, you have a dog at 6 and he's trying to cut into third bend or to do something, cut inside dogs at the third bend. I'm sorry, you're not winning the derby kind of job.
Ala Coulivan Hoffa that night in the semi-finals of the derby.
Yeah, exactly. When you're not meant to be there, if you run a certain line, so the most important thing when you're looking at derby 11, and we shouldn't probably focus on it, but is that you do things the right way all the time. You know what you're doing when the dog sets out there. The dog knows what it's doing and how it's going to try tackle winning the race, and or getting to the lure in their case. Yeah, I don't mind it. I was actually quite impressed with it the other night because it's a young pup and there was loads of space and it was the right way to do it at the time. But you say he's a wide seed, there are a few seeds left in the competition. I think that's quite important too.
Yeah, he will go reasonably straight. In behind him, Ballymac Shar came from off the pace to grab third late, denying Tally-Ho Socks. Ballymac Lucia, she lost all sorts of ground in the opening corner. It was great to see Maxine Locke coming over. This was the end of her challenge. Both of her dogs did her proud. This Ballymac Lucia, she may not win a classic over 4 bends, but when she goes back to the UK, I'm sure they'll target maybe the Derby or something with her. But when she does step up that easy 6 bend trips, the likes of Romford or Monmore, places like this, I'd say she could be a sensation in the UK over that sort of 6 bend trip. She looks a really nice type. She's a lovely attitude, a bitch that you'd certainly love to have in your sort of on your side. Moving on to the second heat, and this went to Brideside Bill, excuse me. This fellow came into the competition with I was going to say a poor record. He was seven races, 6 seconds and a third.
6 seconds.
And like your natural inclination as punters is, not sure about this fella. Well, he's duly obliged, 3 from 3 in Limerick, did everything right the other evening. But even as fast as he was from traps, doing a 4:06, that's a hell of a sectional. He's in 16:04. So he's after losing a good bit of ground on the previous heat winner to the third bend, or the previous heat leader, Solomio. But then he's so strong again, and he needed to be, because Bubbly Charger was really making a charge around the bottom 2 bends. And then, once straightening up into the home straight, Brightside Bill just kicked again. Wins, I'm going to say comfortably by a length and a half. Hell of a run by the winner. Hell of a run by the runner-up. And back in third, Flight Club, talking about stamina and pace. Here's a dog that will, I'd be amazed, doesn't turn into a top-class 750-yard greyhound.
Yeah, like you summed it up well, Ian, because these aren't some of these races aren't clashes, if you know what I mean. They're not clashes from start to finish because there's an early pacer and just a pile of really impressive stamina. And that's what it is. It's not like it's not like they're doing 28:60 or 70. Like this is a 28:24. This race was won in. So like Brightside Bill showed massive pace. I think to get 2 or 3 clear in at this level is pretty sharp stuff you're showing. Bubbly Charger, Mystic Kick I didn't have to weave, but there were a lot of dogs in front of him going into the bend, and there was an opportunity for him to think about how am I going to get through here, or what am I going to do, but actually drove a straight line through to get into a position where it could actually charge down the back. And Flight Club just absolutely rocketed home. I mean, honest to God, if you could take the strongest runners from this competition, you'd probably get a 36 dog competition, and it would be fiercely competitive. There are that many stamina laden greyhounds in the competition. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, it was pretty eye catching the way he ran into the escape, considering how strong those around him were.
Yeah,
Like even if you take out Jack Tavern Boom and Ballymac Sorrel, both really strong runners. The one early pacer or traditional early pacer was Bogger Pat. He didn't get the kick he needed, and it checked off the opening corner. His chance was goosed at that point, especially when you look at the dogs that were in behind him. But no, a really likable display by Brightside Bill. But again, it, we're looking at the dogs in behind him, going like they're fast too. Like it's just a quality collie contest. On to the third heat, and it went to Silent Cobby. Cobby like Robbie is how they describe it. Obviously named after Cobby Mainoo, plays for Manchester United. You may have noticed him, Tommy, hell of a footballer. 28-27, Silent Cobby. This was the first time he actually got on the bunny. He had qualified very, very well and had run in Tralee. He was seen as one of the leading lights there, and inexperience probably got the better of him. This was him opening his account. By all accounts, it's not going to be his last win in the coming weeks, because he did plenty right here. I like the way he forced his way to the front on the opening corner, and they challenge him around the third bend. He kicks again. I think things are coming right for this fellow. Obviously, he's classically bred, being out of a sensational Oaks winner in
yeah.
Ballymac
And been
Beanie. Uh, but a lot to like about him.
Oh, a lot to like about him. And you'd like his development even in the early pace stakes, 140, 137, 133. If that isn't the right trajectory, going a neck or half a length faster early each time. And who's to say that's the end of it? I think you forgive any dog in Tralee when they're unraced, and just so many things go wrong in those races, and if they aren't right for you. But he had caught our eye, and I think we did probably wrote about him at some stage, or certainly mentioned him. He caught the eye a few times, and this is only the start of it, like 28-27. Um, I don't know where he can go, because he doesn't have to find a huge amount. I would say, sorry, just the previous race, Jack Tavern Boom. If we want to look at inexperience and getting a little bit of a bump early, and then forcing himself into getting squeezed out of the first bend. I mean, there's a really fast dog as well, who kind of got no chance to show he was capable of the other night. But Silent Cobby, sorry, he's this is good because Droopy Supply is a really fast dog, really, really fast dog. As I said already, probably not my idea of a cast iron middle seat at the moment. Anyway, he runs too tight a line for my liking at the moment. And I think that's, other than that, I would say Droopy Supply had a great chance of winning the competition, but it's just enough to kind of put me off a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of those competitions where they're still so young in their career that they could
Yeah.
run as an insider, a wider middle, and then might be never done again. Like Clonbrien Tree, he won this from Trap One. Remember, you know what I mean? Like the most
No,
specialized
yeah,
Trap Six runner.
and you have to you look at you're asked to nail your colours to the mast quite early as well, because these are so inexperienced. And someone wouldn't have a huge amount of work done, and you might know exactly what they're going to do. And then when he gets into the heat of battle with five other dogs around them with the inexperience of that, you don't know what way they might go. So I just wouldn't be surprised if he could develop into a proper middle seed as time goes on. But I just wouldn't be surprised when he comes out of this competition. Obviously, you can't change it after the first round or after the second round, is it? I think I wouldn't be surprised if he got a couple of runs as an inside seed and just see how he runs with it. Just
Yeah.
see how he copes with it. Probably when he comes to Shelbourne, I'd imagine.
No surprise to me now if he went on to win the competition. That said,
Oh no,
he's
no,
got
no,
all the
no, no.
pace.
He
He's
it
pace.
just it
He
just
is
it
one of
just
those dogs that capable of a flying start. He did a run in Newcastle that was unheard of.
it's
28-10
just
run around there.
it's just it's just enough. It's just enough to put me off backing him. That's what it is. I'm not going to be surprised, because ability wise, he's right up there.
No, absolutely. It's just that nagging sort of thing there. But at 13-2, compared to maybe a couple of those in front of him at the prices, probably does sort of, there is a little bit more juice there than, let's say, would be with like
Uh,
a Brightside Bill or a Lemon Joey. I'm just, because I just think that I think there's a huge run in him. I think he's one of the few that could do a 28-10 still around Limerick. In behind him, was Pain Barrier. Pain Barrier. This is very much he's a work in progress. Pain Barrier. As we see so often with Brendan Matthews, they don't often, how would you say it? They don't overly school them. And they often learn on the track. And this Pain Barrier, he showed all sorts of pace in a graded competition at Shelbourne Park earlier in the year. And then after bringing him back for the opening round of the Guys and Dolls, he got loose in 28:15. And it was a case of, right, we're taking him out of this. He's going to the Kirby. We think he's ready. And he's there. He's in the semi-finals, and just given their record in the competition, they've won it twice, and they've gone close on another couple of occasions. I just wouldn't be completely ruling out Pain Barrier, but he does need to brush up in his starting.
He does, yeah. And actually, there was quite a bit of greenness too, in the run, even going to the bend, and then as two dogs kind of moved off out of the second bend, he kind of almost followed them a little bit. Maybe got a slight bump as well. I might be a bit harsh there, but he showed a lot of pace. Again, he probably showed pace to almost catch up with Drubby's Deploy. Now Drubby's Deploy went for an inside run on Silent Cobby, sorry.
I'll be like
When there
Robbie.
wasn't the when there wasn't a gap. Look at the third bend again. Ian, if you have a video there, just look at the third bend again
Yeah.
for Drewby's, or fourth bend probably. Just enough to put me off Drewby's Deploy. But I did like Pain Barrier. But again, Pain Barrier is a dog that probably will show more early pace. He's one of the ones I definitely put in the category that will show more early pace with a little bit of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We move on to the last of the four quarterfinals, and this is certainly one where if you look back on this in a few months' time and go, wow, Fate Point
Mm.
Ranger, Toolmaker Giuseppe, Ballymac Jester, Lemon Joey, what a stacked contest that was. They're four very talented greyhounds. Fate Point Ranger is understandably the anti-post favourite. This is the dog that can get loose. So we saw how talented he was around Clonmel. He's carried on into Limerick. Like at no point on Saturday night was I confident he was going to win. I thought Lemon Joey would most certainly
Mm.
outstay him. But like second bend, third bend, last bend, even halfway up the run in, I still thought Lemon Joey might get the better of him. As it was, Ballymac Jester nearly came up and landed on the two of them. But Fay Point Ranger, we know how brilliant he can be to the third bend, but he also showed another string to his bow the other evening. This is a dog who won't just now, down tools if he's challenged or anything like it. Like there's a bit of racing in this fella. I really like him. Really nice dog. A young son of Coulivanny Hoffa, one of the first few, and he's certainly writing a bit of an advert for Hoffa himself.
Lemon Joey has a nice bit of experience, and that's important to say. You're up against a nice bit of experience there too. And Lemon Joey put his head in front. I like Lemon Joey as a dog, I have to say. Um, but Fay Point Ranger probably went up in my estimation the other night for the fact that he didn't fly out. The one dog blast off Ricky came away well, edged out, inches out, but enough to just rub Fay Point Ranger or just make him force him to kind of go through quite a tight gap. You'll be impressed with that. Ballymac Jester was what I would call the inexperience showed when he got the squeezed up at the first bend. He lost ground and momentum, and it took a while to pick up the momentum again. And it was from the third bend again or probably beyond the third bend again, that he really started to pick up, and he flew home. Now, Fate Point Ranger and Lemon Joy were probably coming back a small bit because Toolmaker Giuseppe, who is the strongest there, was flying home as well. But I would think that this was a red hot race now. Really, really good race. This like, and I come away thinking, even though Fate Point Ranger won a neck and a short head, and like they're basically a three-way photo finish almost. I would come away thinking more of him than I did before the race, and he was already on a good run, and he was already quite high in my estimation as it was. But I like the three of those. I like the four of those, the first four home. And in fact, I think even if you want to go back to for a 25 to 1 chance blast off Ricky, for a dog that didn't get into the bend and he can do a bit better than that, I thought he showed a lot of middle pace.
Yeah.
I quite like the fact that he's going to improve a ton as well, blast off Ricky.
A fast bunch of greyhounds. Like he's beaten less than 4 lengths. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
fast
there's
dogs.
a lot of quality in the competition. We'll get to the two semi-finals, Tommy. We might focus a little bit more on the opening heat because it's, as they call it, the tough draw. It's three heat winners plus two of the more eye-catching dogs in defeat in the previous round. Pain Barrier is going to be a big price in trap one, despite the fact that he's capable of a huge run. Silent Cobby in two, Fay Point Ranger, Ballymac Jester, Drewby's Deploy, and Brightside Bill. like if that was the final itself, you'd be delighted. Obviously, it's only one stage off it, but only three of them can progress. It's going to be difficult to pick a winner. You'd suspect Fay Point Ranger will start faster than he did the other night and is probably going to get first run, but it's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed because Brightside Bill can go up very, very well. Look, it's not ideal that Ballymac inside rugby deploy, as we said earlier on. That's not ideal if you want to, if you fancy the Ballymac, but I do think Ballymac can go up quite well.
I think if Jester traps, I don't think Deploy will move in on top of him just for the sake of it. I think he does wait for a bit of space. Deploy. I don't think like he has, as you said, experience. Like he's down to 14 races. I'm not sure if that's included. He's probably 15 races actually. Those cards often not updated until later in the
Yeah,
week. Um, and I'm not even sure that includes all his races in England as well. He had 3 or 4 runs in the UK,
yeah.
but like he has that little bit of experience, so he may not just dive in just for the sake of it, unless he took a flyer, at which point he would then probably dive in. But yeah, it's listen, it's a very interesting contest. I've no doubt Fate Point Ranger would be favourite, but I wouldn't be backing him at a crazy short price like Silent Cobby on his inside, Droopy's Deploy, Ballymac Jester, Brightside Bill, and like even the Pain Barrier dog can get involved because there is a chance of a bit of scrimmaging on sort of in the middle of the track.
Well, look, it's a difficult one. A huge amount depends on what happens between Ballymac and Drewry's deploy early because they can both go up reasonably well. They're both very strong. And if there happens to be a bump between the pair, then either Fay Point Ranger or maybe Brightside Bill gets away. Brightside Bill impressed me as well last week, the early pace. I mean, what do you do? A 126, is it?
126.
Um,
There's a
to go
404
126.
or 406, like that's good running.
Yeah, that's good running is right. You did make a point, and it'd be interesting to see. Now, this is the type of thing maturity and racing and strength can do. That middle pace that you talked about, where he lost a little bit down to the third bend. That's the type of thing that you can work on. You can build with experience and strength. It's sometimes you can't get the early pace. Now, obviously, at this stage when they're quite inexperienced, some of them can still develop a bit of early pace. But in general terms, you kind of after about 10 races, you kind of know what way a dog is going to be for the rest of their career. He can strengthen up the middle for the middle part of the race. But
He's all
I think
he's your
I
Mal
just
Brandy. He's that all rounder, isn't he? He's a dog with a bit of
yeah
everything.
he is, yeah, he's that type of dog. He's quite, even though Ballymac Jester and Fay Point Ranger are bigger dogs than him. He's a 78 pounder. That's not a small dog. Like that's a big dog that can develop. I would say, look, Fay Point Ranger is the most likely winner, but there's so much stamina. I look, Ballymac Jester for me at 16-1 is probably overpriced in the long odds market. You just be keeping your eyes closed a little bit early on in this heat.
Yeah, it's a case of fingers crossed into the best. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. On to the second heat. And like there's no point in saying like this is the heat you want to be in. Skywalker Shar, Bubbly Charger, Solomio, Lemon Joey, Flight Club. I keep saying Fight Club, Flight Club, and Fun in the Run. Fun in the Run is the sole quarterfinal heat winner. He's got his draw on the outside. Given the fact that Flight Club probably won't challenge him into the opening corner, he probably does have his draw. Lemon Joey can go up fast. He didn't get a start the other evening. He's capable of going up faster. We know Solo Mio is good early speed. Bubbly Charger just seems to be getting better and better each night. Obviously that bears fruit on the clock, although he only went 2 spots faster in the quarterfinal than he did in the previous round. And Skywalker Shara on the inside, he's a decent type. He's strong, but he'll need to sort of sharpen up in the early yards. But again, it's a talented lineup. Um, I probably would side with Lemon Joey if he trapped
Yeah,
from
me
turns. He's
too.
probably the one to beat. But like you
Yeah.
could certainly make claims for Bubbly Charger, Solomio, and most certainly on the outside Fun in the Run. And if you are not in front, you're then keeping an eye out for Skywalker Shar and certainly keeping an eye out for Flight Club. It's an interesting contest again.
Yeah, look, if I had to go for one of them, I'd definitely be going for Lemon Joey. I think he's got it. Like Trap Four is probably his draw. He can go up. He stays. He was touched up by Fay Point Ranger. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Didn't give up. Battled hard all the way to the line. I thought maybe the draw isn't bad for Bubbly Charger as well with Skywalker Shar in one. If he could break well enough to clear Skywalker Shar quickly, he'll be a real player. But I just think Lemon Joey has shown like he's got quite a bit of experience relative to most runners in this. Obviously, the bottom dog from the run has plenty of experience too, but he has quite a bit of experience, and I think the draw is good. I think the draw is very good for Lemon Joey, so he'd be a stronger selection now than anything in the first heat. That first heat is just impossible.
Absolutely impossible. That's it. Ron Handy Kirby Memorial will continue at Limerick on Saturday night. Of course, the final will be televised live on Virgin Television on the 19th of April. I'll be there, and hopefully you will be there too. Nothing like being at the track. Don't forget, folks, we've asked you a few times over the last few weeks, like and subscribe. It certainly works out for the algorithm. It makes us more visible to people. So let's spread the word of Greyhound Racing. Don't forget, Barry Drake will be with you on Thursday. I dare say, and he hasn't told me, nobody's told me, but I dare say there could be an Easter Cup angle there, whether it be a Kieran O'Sullivan or a Pat Buckley. I could be completely wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised. Tommy, anything else to add? We have the Super Sprint down at Kirby Park. Two good heat winners, Blast Off Jer and Born Racer. That's turning into a nice little competition. There's never one that stands out in it. You know, because of Cork and the very nature of it, you need to be doing everything right. Born Racer has the draw in one only if it starts. If it doesn't start, that's not the place you want to be, because they will come in and top you into the opening corner. But a decent sprint, and the defending champion Road Exile went out last week. Anything else to add?
There was a time when you wouldn't backtrap on the sprint in Cork, but I think that day is gone. I did like Born Racer. I have liked him through the competition actually. I thought he was impressive. The 1740 is a fair run, even though there was a time there when we were getting 17 teens, was there? 13s at the record.
Wow, big one. You need a fast one to do that. A couple of other things. Just want to mention Droopy's Flightline. Droopy's Flightline had his first winner from his first pup. Droopy's Apollo. I'll be writing about it this morning. It's there on Talking Dogs if you want to get interested in that one. I know there's good reports about his progeny. We mentioned Romeo Magical Kulavani Hoffa, good winner in Fate Point, Ranger and Co. There's some good dogs knocking about. What else was going to mention? Yes, Paul Hennessy had that four-timer at Toaster on Sunday. He has a couple of nice types in the Maiden Derby. Keep an eye on that. Derby Trial Stakes also got underway. English Derby preparations will be ongoing for the next few weeks. Of course, the Juvenile is there on the 20th. That's Easter Sunday, and certain Bocco's Diamond likely to be a hot favourite, although Wiki Ned flew around at 28.65 yesterday, so the home team might just feel they have something to take them on with. They're wrong, but just they might think that. I think that's it, Tommy. That's Talking Dogs on a Monday. We'll see you a week from now. Actually, you won't see me next week. It'll be someone else. It'll be Barry in the hot seat. Will you be here?
I'm going to be around, all right. I just think that actually, and I don't know why I have a head like a sieve when it comes to any remember anything. If ask me about the 80s and 90s, but don't ask me anything closer than that. Quietly, the 17-14 one day doing a track record in the Super Sprint final.
Wow,
17-14 in Cork.
Fast dog, quietly.
He beat Hee-Haw Sheriff. Beat him only beat him a length and a half. There's a bit of a memory for you.
There you are. Yeah, it was like it was yesterday, Tommy. In fairness, we were still probably in our 20s, maybe even early 30s. That's it, though, folks, from us on this Talking Dogs on a Monday. Again, we'll be back next week. Barry Call will be in the hot seat. I'll be taking a well-earned rest. Okay, but that's it from us this evening. Good luck, good evening. God bless.
This podcast was brought to you by Greyhound Racing Ireland.